and not related to the Falcons, but there was a bombshell today.
Yeah.
UT quarterback, UT. I know Jeff doesn't like that school, but I mean, that's the college football team that I do follow. But UT's quarterback, Nico Iamaleava, I can't even pronounce his last name, Iamaleava or whatever, is basically saying, I am, that's exactly what to say. That is the headline. I am leaving UT. Basically, I think what happened was he missed the practice today, and head coach Josh Heupel, credit to him, is like, all right, guys off our team. What I've been reading, Jeff, and I'm not as big in college football as I am with the NFL. He wanted a couple $1 million more in NIL, and basically UT wasn't budging, and it kind of led to this dispute, and it led to Holden. Here's where I think things are gonna go wrong in college football. You have a kid like Nico who, in my opinion, was getting propped up higher than he should. He was way too hyped up. I think I even saw that he was like fourth or fifth, like best odds to win the Heisman. He's not anywhere close to that. But the thing is, Jeff, what's going to happen is these kids are getting such a big head now, and they think that they're so much better than they are. They don't realize that year 2 to year 3 in college is a big deal. And now you're switching programs. You're leaving Knoxville, who, like, say what you want. I think they have a good program that could potentially cultivate him, and they have an offensive line. You know, they made the playoffs the last year, whatever. Like, just having that continuity there, maybe he could have from year 2 to year 3 done something. But now with the transfer portal and all these things, I think it's going to really hurt QBs like Nico, who's going to try to hook up with a team. Like, what if he does go to Ohio State? Is it a guarantee that the guy even starts? He got freaking dismantled by that defense. Like, he gave up a starting position on an SEC school, keeping the continuity, the coaching staff, and everything. And now he can go from, what if he just had a crazy almost Heisman? Yeah, I still don't think he would have won the Heisman. Let's just say he finished 3rd or 4th, and maybe it would have ended up in a day 2 NFL pick next year. Very likely he could end up like not being drafted if he declares next year. Like, that is on the table now.
You know, I'm going to give a shout out to my head coach. Dabo Swinney has been preaching from the pulpit for almost 10 years now about how if you didn't have strong parameters with the releasing of the NIL stuff, that this was exactly what was going to happen, right? And everybody took it as, oh, look, white racist Dabo Swinney doesn't want to pay young black kids to go play college football. He wants to make – and that's literally what has been painted of Dabo, right? But everything that Dabo said was going to happen is absolutely happening, and it is destroying college football. And my best friend will tell you, I love him. Shout out to him. I have said for 20 years now that guys in college should be getting paid. So I am not an anti-paying college player, right? You know, my master's degree is in human resources, but my specific area is actually athletic leadership, right? Because I thought at one point I wanted to go in and be an athletic director. So part of my 200-page thesis to graduate was both on Title IX as well as the history of college athletics. And people don't understand or don't know that the term amateurism wasn't coined by college athletics until the early 1950s. And the reason that they did that was because these guys were considered employees, specifically football players. And remember, back in the 20s, 30s, 40s, they didn't play with actual helmets and like face masks. So these guys were filing, claims, worker comp claims, and schools were having to pay a ton of money to these football players. So they came up with that phrase, amateurism, and it went a completely different trajectory, right? So I say all of that to say, one, shout out to Dabo. That dude was right, and all of you owe him an apology because everything that he said was correct. You just didn't like the message coming from the messenger itself. If it had come from anybody else, you would have listened. But here's the issue with Nico, right? And by the way, shout out to Dan Lanning too, right? Because the word is Lanning is the one who called Heupel and said, hey, his dad's out here calling everybody, shopping him around.
Whoa. I didn't see that. That's nuts.
So shout out to him for doing that, right? If Nico played, how many touchdowns as a Tennessee fan? How many touchdowns do you know did he have in SEC play last year? Do you know?
I don't know the SEC Cup, but against Bama, Georgia, and Ohio State, he threw a total of 1 touchdown.
He had 9 total touchdowns against SEC teams last year. And he didn't throw anything against Ohio State. He had 9 total touchdowns last year in SEC play. 4 of them came against Vanderbilt in the last game of the year. Okay, so he had 5 touchdowns and the other 8 games, 0 rushing touchdowns. And you're going to tell me that you and your dad and your entire team thought it was a great fucking idea to come back and say, hey, I'm worth $4 million now instead of $2 million? Like, get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. And yes,
he cost himself.
Yeah, he did. But like, this needs to be the wake-up call that college football needs to say, hey, we got to set some parameters here. And I think Jay Billis, like, people don't like the message coming from the messenger. Jay Billis hit this shit on the head. He said every college football player needs to have coaching contracts, and that you get a 3-year deal with a option for a 4th. And if you leave, you owe that school a buyout. Done.
Yeah.
Make it happen. But here's why it will never happen. Because the one conference in the country who did, like, I don't know if you remember, but it was like 6 or 7 years ago, NCAA came out because college scholarships are year to year, right? They renew July 1st of every year, and they go through the end of June the next year, right? So the fiscal year, right? That's when they happen. So, like, you go in there the last day of June, it's the last day you're on scholarship, you go in there, you sign your new one so that the next day you're good to go, right? Like, so all of us, like, it was basically a long line of every athlete going into whatever office you were in. You went in there, you signed your scholarships, and you're good to go, right? What was it, 6, 7, 8 years ago, whatever it was, NCAA came out and said, you know what, we're not going to do this. If you want to offer a kid a 4-year scholarship, sign them up for a 4-year. The one conference that didn't want to do it was the SEC. Why? Because for decades now, the SEC has believed in roster management, meaning this: if a guy that they've recruited does not work out or is not living up to the projection that they had for him, they want to be able to cut the kid and move on. And they have always done that. And that to me has always been to the detriment of the athlete, because for me, the one thing that I love about my head coach is Dabo doesn't care if you didn't live up to the expectations that they had for you had for yourself. He's not going to give up on you because he committed to you for the rest of your life. Clemson is a lifelong commitment. It is not a 3-year commitment, and I love my head coach for that. So he was absolutely willing to give out guys these 3 and 4 year contracts for scholarships, because he's committed to you regardless of how you pan out, because he's more worried about you as the man, not you as the player. But SEC coaches did not want to do that because they did not want a 4-year commitment to a guy who didn't come in and wasn't going to work hard or wasn't going to pan out. So that's the issue that you see, is you will never see SEC teams, and this is the reason this will only get worse in college football, because SEC programs do not believe in long-term commitment to athletes. They just don't. Right, wrong, or indifferent, if a guy's not working out, they don't want to be able to have him on the roster for the next year. So I think Jay Billis hit this on the head. You cut out 99% of this bullshit if you sign a guy to a 3-year contract with an option for a 4th year, and if they leave, they owe you a buyout. That cuts out all the bullshit. That cuts out all the parents like Nico's dad, who's making these secret bullshit phone calls to other coaches saying, hey, you want my kid? Because I'll tell you, to your point, going into year 3 that's a big detriment to him. Like, not many guys, and yes, you look at like Will Howard. That dude left after his 4th year in a program. He was really good at Kansas State before he said, I'm going to go win a title somewhere. So it's not like he was hop, skipping, and jumping around. Kirby Smart, the Georgia head coach, last week talked about how 10 years from now, he wants somebody to do a study on what happened to all of these kids that went to 2, 3, 4, not 3, but went to 3, 4, 5 different colleges versus the kids that went to 1 or 2. And he said, because I promise you, and we all know this, those kids that stayed, worked hard, grinded their asses off, you're going to be more successful because that's your mindset. Your mindset is you're going to compete. You don't give a shit what happens behind you. Like, you are willing to put in the work versus a kid who wants the easy way out. And if you're only worried about money, you're not worried about being a leader, because leaders don't worry about that. Money takes care of themselves when it comes to leadership. You're worried about being the best available player and the best teammate and the best leader you can be. And, I know UT people don't want to hear this. You are better off without him. You're 100%.
100%.
He was carried by an elite defense last year and an elite running game. That's why Tennessee got to the playoff last year with him at quarterback. It had nothing to do with him. And you are 100% better off. Josh Heupel is better, because look at the precedent that sets, by the way, if they give into that demand. Now you lose everybody because everybody's going to be like, nope, I'm sitting down because I want more money. So shout out to UT and shout out to Heupel for making that decision, because I guarantee you it wasn't easy.
And I have a weird feeling that this is not going to work out for Nico financially too, because he's looking for 4. I don't know that any school's going to give him that. I think his dad, and it sucks. I really do feel bad for the kid, because if he has his dad in his ear, like, hey, like, come on, like, you can get injured next year. Let's grab another 2 million. You know, I get that, but like, the thing is, the heart of the NIL, the heart of it is for the kids not to worry about anything financial throughout the full 4 years they're in college. And they should get a share of it. The NCAA for years has like ignored all of this. They've been racking in crazy profits. Like, I saw a tweet post out there. This is a massive overcorrection, but now we're too much on the other way. And if we don't set in rules, if we don't have boundaries like this, it's just going to be wild, wild west. What's going to preclude Tennessee from going up to Dylan Raiola in Nebraska and throwing $10 million in his face to be the quarterback? And by the way, I would, as a Tennessee fan, I'd be elated, but it's wrong. It's kind of like, what if the Falcons could just go and grab any freaking player they want, just pay him and just bring him over, right? Like, in theory, as a fan, I would love that. And I would love for Raiola to come over, but for the good of, for the game, for, you know, competitiveness, like, this isn't the way to go down. Like, it just doesn't make sense
at all. And loyalty has to mean something. You know, and you talk about the overcorrection. You know, I work in an industry full time where you see the result of overcorrections, and it usually ends up with somebody dead, right? And obviously that's a really dramatic point to make, but when you overcorrect because you were wrong to begin with, that's when really bad things happen, and that's what we're seeing right now. And college football is going to lose a lot of fans. Because a lot of fans really do believe in that amateurism phrase, which I've never believed in. But like you've gone well past amateurism. You've gone well past, you know, name, image, likeness. You were supposed to be getting paid for your name to be on billboards or your image to be in, you know. I'll never forget. I went to Clemson. Went to there's like literally a gas station across the street from campus. Okay, sorry, convenience store. It's not even a gas station, convenience store. It's actually directly across the street from historic Riggs Field, okay, on campus, which is where soccer plays now. It's where football played like their first year or whatever. There's a convenience store there. And I walked in one day and I saw Taj Boy. Shout out to Taj. I saw Taj Boy's silhouette there hawking Bud Light. Okay. Something that college football can't even like they can't even advertise alcohol in their own stadiums. But the convenience store 100 feet or 50 feet across campus had a silhouette of your All-American quarterback hawking Bud Light. And he wasn't getting a dime for that. And you knew it was him because it was his bigger build. It was his high, like it was everything except for his name. I mean, that even the board that they used was dark complected, right? Like you knew it was Taj. He wasn't getting a dime for that. You know, Deshaun Watson had one of the highest selling jerseys in college football. He didn't get a dime from that. Like, so for me, those guys should always have been paid because everybody else got rich. You know, I look at the Ohio State, this is where I was like, this is bullshit. 10 years ago, it came out, the Ohio State AD at the time, and I think he's actually still there, and I forget his name because he's just not worth remembering. But part of his contract was the wrestling team GPA was like a 3.5, and he got a $200,000 bonus for their GPA. Bitch, you have nothing to do with their academic progress. You have nothing to do with how well they do in the classroom, but you're profiting off of it? Like that to me, I was like, all right, this is bullshit. Literally everybody but the athlete is getting rich off the athlete. And instead of allowing that to kind of play out and allow guys to get something, you've now allowed guys to come in and say, I'm not playing for less than $4 million. Like it's absolutely absurd.
I honestly feel bad for the kids, really, because I think there's going to be a lot of family pressure, more so than they've ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what the right solution is, Jeff. Like, do you lock up the NIL funds in some sort of mechanism that you have to graduate to unlock it or something like that, instead of putting the money in the kids' hands? They go buy a Lambo, they go, you know, get their mom a house, everything, you know, they do some right things, they do some wrong things, but at the end of the day, these are 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids that, like, even me at 30 or whatever years old right now, if you threw that kind of money at me, I'd be like, whoa, what, you know? And that's me, like, decades older than them. Like it's too much for them to handle. They don't have the training. They're so young that, and they're hearing everyone in their ear just ask for money. Like even NFL players coming in, right? They have that rookie symposium where they go talk about finances. These kids have no idea what they're getting themselves into.
They don't, right? And they're being set up for failure. And, you know, Coach Sweeney has said for years that NIL money should be tied to graduation. You know, yes, give them some now so they have something to live on, so they can, you know, be comfortable, and they can, you know, if you got to send money home. But the majority, you know, for him, he always said the majority should be tied up in graduation. Give them, you know, that way when they leave here with a diploma, and they leave with a check for $4 million, because now that sets them up for life. And it allows them to go buy their first house, allows them to start a business. It allows them, versus giving a kid $2 million now for mom and dad to piss the money away because they're in charge of it, and the kid still ends up with nothing, right? Like, tied to something important. But that also comes from a coach where you look over the last 10 years, literally outside of Northwestern, Clemson has the highest graduation rate among all Division I football programs. Like, that's not an accident, right? But I think it's like 7 kids that have played at Clemson for at least 3 years have graduated. The 7 that didn't all left early for the NFL draft. 2 of them have come back to get their degree, right? So, like, graduating at Clemson is a big deal, and that's why Dabo wanted it tied to graduation rates, because ultimately you still should be, you know, you should still be graduating these kids. Academics should still be a focus, and I completely agree on that, right? Like, you know, you have degrees, I have degrees. We can talk about the return on the investment of whether it was worth it or not. That's a whole different conversation to have. But these guys, like, that's why they're there. They're there to get an education. They're there to play ball. They're there to be successful on and off the field. And if you're only there worried about getting a $4 million check, you're not taking care of responsibilities and other things that you need to be worried about.
Yeah, exactly. You hit it on the head there.
I mean, hell, I'll be honest, Andrew. Give me $4 million at 19-year-old, and I'm doing a lot of fuckery. The debauchery that I'm coming up with at 19 it has never been seen before, right? Like, we can crack jokes about snorting cocaine off a hooker's ass. Like, the things that I would have done at 19 with that kind of money in my pocket is absolutely insane. And we're acting like it's really not that big of a deal.
You're not alone though. Like, that, it's insane for anybody. Like, 70, like, they are too. We think that NFL players coming in, like rookies, are too young. Their brains are 3 years less developed coming in. Like, it's just crazy to me. They have to lock it up or something. They got to lock up the money, and maybe, like, you graduate, you get that first tier. 5 years later, you get another tier. You got to protect the players from themselves and from their family too, because it's really not fair to them. And
you also need to put in something where they can't, like, sell to, like, JG Wentworth, right? Where they can go get, like, a lump sum. They sell, like, 10 years worth of lump sums for, like, you know, a quarter of what it's worth. Like, you know, you give them financial literacy courses. Make sure that you have people available to them to understand how to make money last, how to properly invest it. And it's not in your Uncle Pookie's get rich quick scheme, right? Like, it's an actual, you know, whether you're talking, you know, certain life insurance policies that you can borrow. Like, there's a lot of different ways that you can invest money, make money, and be successful. And these kids don't know any of it. You know, for us as males, our brains aren't fully functioned until 25, but we're out here giving these kids millions upon millions of dollars when they're still kids. Like, it's absolutely insane.
I think about the shit that I used to do when I was 25 or younger, and I'm just, I get anxiety thinking about how stupid I was. And, like, now we're talking 17 years old. Like, that's too. And the thing is, like, if you're going to be eligible for NIL, right? Like, you should go through this application process where, like, you got to take these courses, whatever, like these financial literacy, before you're eligible to even receive the money. And then on top of that, the school you're going to, those schools should, like, call their alma maters, whether it's UT, whatever. UT should call on, like, Peyton, and all those other, like, big time, Camaro, whatever. Like, get them to be mentors for these kids. Like, hey, I've been through it. This is what you should do. This is what you shouldn't do. I'm always here for you. Like, you know, stuff like that. Like, start a program like that. Help them out, because the way that it is, it's kind of like we're throwing money at them, and it's not fair. Like, yeah, I don't know. I feel very strongly.
The name of that program should be The name of that program should be Just Say No, right? Because saying no is how you keep your millions. Because you get all of a sudden you go from, and not that Nico didn't grow up poor, right? Like that is not the case at all. But a lot of these guys don't come from money, and you give them $2 million, they start saying yes to a lot of different people. And look at what's his name, the old Alabama running back that got drafted by the Browns 10, 15 years ago, Trent Richardson, right? Like he's openly talked about how, you know, at one point he didn't know it, but he ended up finding out he had like 15 Netflix accounts because he couldn't say no to people. And he was like, I'm paying for Netflix 15 different times every month because I basically was an open bank account for people because I couldn't say no. Learn how to say no. Yes, you know, if you feel, you know, and obviously there's a lot of cultural differences, right? You know, there are kids who feel like they owe their parents something. There are kids who feel like they owe like their lifelong best friend something. There are kids that like they feel, but ultimately it's okay to say no. And if they get mad at you, they were never your people to begin with. And so, you know, teaching these kids to say no, teaching these kids to put themselves first, teaching these kids how to invest and not go broke, and how to vet out the proper attorneys and proper tax people and proper entities that you need in your corner as paramount. And these kids are getting none of that.